So first, let us start the recording. Non-complex for taking the course class in hybrid mode today. And as you know that over these last almost 3.5 months, we have covered various topics in the area of database management systems, both theory as well as lab. And we have already completed all the topics, and there is nothing new that we would like to cover today. It is just about wrapping up the course. So I'll give you some quick overview of the topics that I covered, and then Professor Ghosh will also talk about the topics he has covered. So if you remember that we started with the basic need for having database management systems and database running on a DBMS as compared to using direct files for storing and manipulating data. And after that, we talked about some basic data modeling techniques. We talked about ER model first, and there we mentioned about entities and relationships and the various types of entity relationships that one can have, for example, one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, and so on. From there, we discussed how to design a database from the ER model. And after that, Professor Ghosh covered several topics. He will mention about that. And after the topics that were covered by him, I again talked about this database design from a different perspective, which is about normalization theory. And after the normalization theory, we had our first test equivalent of mid-sem. And after that, Professor Ghosh continued his topics. He covered data warehousing, data mining, and then storage and indexing techniques, which again he will talk about. And after that, I again took over and I covered topics like transaction management, specifically the properties of transactions. And from there, we discussed in detail how to handle concurrency, the different concurrency control protocols like the locking protocols, timestamp protocols, and validation based protocols. We also talked about the concept of serializability, why it is important, why we need to target it. Also, we discussed about some weak levels of consistency when we did not go for full conflict serializability depending on the type of application that is required. And after that, we discussed about the recovery protocol. Specifically, we talked about how we can recover from a system crash, how we maintain logs for recovery, and how we do the redo and undo operations when a system is recovering after a crash. In the context, we talked about different ways of doing the buffering and what are the implications of it. And finally, after those discussions on recovery, in our yesterday's class, we talked about this query optimization, why it is important, and we again explained why we try to reduce the number of joins, except in certain cases like data warehousing. And when there are a lot of indexes, of course, then the optimizer will have to figure out which is the best possible query execution plan, and that might itself take a lot of time. So those are the issues that we talked about in the context of query optimization. And then we talked about external merge sort, how when we need to sort a lot of data, which is very common because in many select we do an order by. So if you want to do an order by, and if there are millions of rows, not all of which will fit in main memory, then we have to systematically bring them into main memory, sort it, create the runs, and again merge those runs and so on. So that external merge sort, so that is what we explained yesterday. So those are the topics that I covered. So Professor Ghosh can give a summary of the topics he covered. Then we'll talk about the lab, what we covered there.
Okay, thank you, Professor Sural. Good morning to all of you. So this semester we initially started with online, then went to hybrid. So it was. If you look at the course overall, including theory and lab, so what we tried that overall give you a overview and a working knowledge of the database management system, more specifically relational database management system, which is we feel, also I think you also feel, it's important because being a computer science graduate, how a database works and how to interface or design a database, that is important to have the basic knowledge of the things. So as Professor Sural was mentioning, he started with the overview of the database DBMS and the modeling aspects, design aspects. So I continued with the SQL, that structure query language, which forms the which we can talk about the de facto language for interacting with the database, right? So rather in most of your lab, or most of the lab portion was based on your SQL, and rather in the Professor Sural also took some advanced SQL aspects of the things. So that is one part. And secondly, then we started with another aspects of data warehousing, when there are multi-dimensional data, and especially when the when not only retrieving, storing, retrieving, querying on the data is important, more of taking some sort of a decision support system or decision making on that data, or data leading to data analytics or data analysis type of things comes into play, then we require some sort of a multi-dimensional data, how this data can be stored, maintained, and how to mine this sort of a data, like to find a pattern out of a large data set. It may be something related to domain, like maybe a particular business area, a business domain, or it may be something which is say even something of weather forecasting or meteorological related things, but where the volume of data is pretty large. And not only that, there are different sources of the data there, and we need to take a call based on a, or have a need to find out a pattern, those type of things. So that data warehousing and data mining, we thought that will give you a flavor of it, so we tried that. And also I covered that this data indexing, specifically storage and data indexing and hashing, which form more on the what we say backbone of all these operations, like how good your index is, based on that how good will be your response time, and how means how quickly your query will be covered, and how you can manage the overall database system. Because when we are talking about database, it is pretty large data sets, right? If it is a very small data sets, some 10, 20, 100 type of tuples, then you may not require a database at all. Not always true, but we could have done with our simple file system itself. So when we have large systems, so we require appropriate indexing, storage mechanisms, or in other sense, the whole system as a whole, the database engine, back-to-back, the storage mechanisms, the overall file systems of the operating system should be in somewhat sync, right? So that we tried. And as Professor Sural mentioned, at the end, we went, discussed about transactions, different recovery mechanism, some bit of consistency, this your concurrence control or something. So we personally feel that the course we tried to frame, including theory and lab, making it in a integrated fashion, it has given you a good overview of the whole how a DBMS works. And in your future all this your activity, you may be going to industry or academics or research, etc. I feel that the basic knowledge of this handling a large how to handle a database will be directly or indirectly will definitely help you. Okay, with this, let me stop here, and we can have some if they have any query, etc.
Yeah. So before taking up queries, so just to complete our discussion about the lab component, so we tried to give you some idea about how one can do real modeling of data, like using yard diagrams in sample applications. We tried to give you some simple applications to get the concepts clear. And of course, we wanted you to become expert in SQL for a very specific reason. So if you talk to your seniors, you will know that in many of these placement tests and interviews, they ask you about writing SQLs, and also generally they ask a lot of questions from databases. And many of our graduates, some of which whom actually did their masters, like dual degree students did their masters, or undergrad students did their bachelors under us in for their BTP or MTP. So they came back and told us that indeed what we learned in the databases, actually we are using it on a daily basis. Just 2 weeks back, I was talking to one of my MTP students, dual degree fifth year, who graduated in 2021, that is last year. So he's currently working in Google, and he said that, I mean, whatever I had learned in the database course, exactly that is my area of work in Google. So this is going to be helpful for you, and that is how we have oriented the course, including it theory and lab components. And in the lab components, once again, within the limitations of the available online database systems, like say whatever we had available in the form of so within those limitations, like exactly we did not get an opportunity to help you learn exactly how Oracle AWM works, because that is not what is fully supported in the online version. And because this was held online, and in our lab, of course, the installation that we have for Oracle, that supports AWM, but this time this could not be done because of the limitations as well. Good start schema design, and also towards the second half of the semester, we mm, helped you in learning how to develop a database application. So with a database in the back end and front end on top of it through mini projects. While some of you did not exactly use a true database and its features, you use some other frameworks and Django, stuff like that. So so that might have given you some basic knowledge, working knowledge, and possibly helped you to develop quick applications. But when you are talking about real large types of systems, you will need to have an appropriate database. And the whole point is that you may have to migrate from one database to another, over a period of time. So it is important that your front end and back end are not intimately, they get connected. So you should be able to separate out your back end from the front end. And that was the reason why we were impressing upon you that you better use some database like MySQL, and not the default screens that you can generate using frameworks like Django and all. But that's fine. So some of you did that. Some of you used proper front end using maybe Python scripts or using PHP and so on, and backend databases. And of course, then we went on to develop this app, the mobile app. Again, the reason is that in many cases, when you do your project, or be it BTP, be it MTP, if you go for your masters in a good university, there you will see that you will get a lot of assignments where you have to possibly, as an example, so you may go for masters or PhD, where you may have to develop an app to get some sort of say do a case study where users will participate. And you cannot expect all the users to be using the browser based application, so you may want them to use mobile applications. So that again will help you even for your BTP, for example. Your guide might ask you to do a user survey, and for that survey you have to develop an interface, and which typically is expected to be a mobile app, lightweight mobile app. And so that any users can at their free time simply use their mobile phone to use the app and get the data. So these are all the reasons why we had all these types of different assignments in this particular course. So that is about all we wanted to cover about the test. So the final test equivalent of ENDSEM, that will be held on Tuesday, that is 12th, one week from now, and the slot for courses in that schedule for courses in D slot is from 11 to 1 on the 12th, which is next Tuesday. So we plan to hold the test from 11:30 to 12:30, 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. on Tuesday, 12th. So we'll make an announcement over email as well. And so any other related announcements for the test will be made through email. And about the syllabus for the test, effectively anything that was not included in the mid-sem test, that means effectively whatever we have covered from data warehousing onwards all the way till the merge sort technique that we discussed, plus the basic, remember the basic, this is very important, the basic database design concept will be included in the test. So you will not require to study normalization, that you need not worry about. Okay. And that basic ER model also you do not need to worry about, but you may be asked to design a database and from there to go to the next step. So just remember that it is important that you remember basic concepts of database design. So like primary key, foreign key, and so on. So it may not really need to start from an ER diagram, but you may be asked to come up with a database design and then do something on top of it. So that will be required. And that database design you can do, if you want, you can do it from ER modeling, or if you do not want, you can also start directly with a set of tables. But you clearly highlight the primary keys and foreign keys and so on. So again, to emphasize that most of the weightage we can say is essentially from post mid-sem topics, but basic concepts of database design and basic SQL, so that of course will be required. And this is going to be an open book test. You can consult your notes and so on. But as usual, it is not that you are allowed to consult anything from your classmates or anything that is available online. You cannot directly use those kinds of things. Okay, those are not allowed. So is there any question from anybody?
Will the pattern be same as the mid-sem test?
The pattern may or may not be the same. It need not be the same. Because we find that with those kinds of patterns, there is heavy collaboration that is happening among the students. So we may not have the whole thing as those types similar pattern. There might be different pattern.
Will we be required to write on paper and scan it?
Yeah, it may be required. It may not be required. And if it is always good that you keep some paper, pen and paper ready with you, and make sure that you can it is not necessary that you scan in the sense that you have to submit PDF. You can simply take images and upload. Okay, so we expect that the basic camera of all the mobile phones, the smartphones, work correctly. We do not want to hear that my scanner was not working and all. It's not necessary that you have to scan it, like generating a PDF and all that. Simply taking images and uploading them also will be sufficient if you have to write something on a piece of paper. Any other question? Okay, so if there is no other question, then we are stopping the recording here, and we will make an announcement about the dates and syllabus as we just now shared.
Date is now fixed.
Date is fixed. What I mean is that it is fixed, but we will formally send an email conveying to the entire class about the time slot, from when to when the test will be held and so on. So that is what we'll send an email, and about the syllabus what we just now mentioned, that again will be also mentioned in the email. Any other question?
Sir,
Yeah.
what courses do you suggest after this preliminary DBMS course?
Okay, so I'm answering it in a general sense, not because you are doing your BTP with me. So first of all, we offer for the last 2 years we offered a course on advanced database systems in the autumn semester. So this time we are not sure whether it will be offered because not many students showed interest. So if it is offered, you can opt for it. But other than that, you can always go for other courses. There are courses on geographical information systems that is offered, special databases, and advanced database system. You can take a look at my website for the content, and for the geographical information system, you can take a look at Professor SKG's website. And of course, there are other courses like distributed systems and blockchain and so on, which also you can take up. But other than that, of course, there are many different courses that electives that are offered by the department. So you can take any of these.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else has any other question? Yeah, and just to tell you that we are actually working on the finalizing all the marks of the labs, etc. And it is taking a bit of time just to see who has attempted on his or her own and who have collaborated, and that actually is taking up a lot of our time. So, but those who have done on their own, they have nothing to worry. Okay, so if there is no other question, thank you very much. So we are closing here. Thanks for attending the course, and we look forward to seeing you in more of our courses in the next semester onwards, and of course also in person. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.